I'm going to start around about here. I think I'm just going to draw this. This is the top of Scrooge's hat. Gabriel, who's one of my ardent supporters on Patreon, he messaged today to say he's really loving my Christmas videos, which I'm doing a lot on my other channel, Draw Stuff Real Easy. Click up here, you'll find a link somewhere. And he says he really loves sort of Christmas things and Christmas iconography, as he puts it. And he says he just loves it all, but most of all, he said he loves his favourite book of all time is Dickens' Christmas Carol. And he said, maybe, like I did some Lord of the Flies recently. Oh, again, click up here. Maybe I could do something from Christmas Carol. And, well, my heart sank immediately, and I thought, oh, this was only about 10 minutes ago that I got this, and this message, and so I kind of replied and said, well, it's weird because my first term at art college, so this is way back in 1979, so that was, sort of autumn time, leading into Christmas, and so they gave us Christmas homework to do, and I thought, I don't want to do homework, I'm not at school anymore. But anyway, so their Christmas homework was to do 2 illustrations from A Christmas Carol, which of course meant I had to go and read it. I mean, I knew the story, but so I better go and read it again. And so I did. And it wasn't quite how I remembered it, because I suppose I'd remembered it from TV adaptations and things like that. And so other stuff going on. And I think I did, I can't remember, I did an illustration of the Ghost of Christmas Present, I think. And I also did an illustration of like a party going on at Scrooge's nephew's. And so, and it was such in those days that illustrations were like that, and you were told by a publisher, we have a space 3 inches by 4 inches or 10 centimetres by 15 or whatever, and fill that with an illustration. And so that's what you did. And so I dutifully, we were given our instructions from art college, and it said, do these illustrations to fit, it was pretending that they were publishers, and they sort of giving us this brief, and they were telling us the page size and the illustration size, all that kind of thing. And so I got to work over that Christmas vacation and did my thing. And no, I'm thinking now this is going to be, we're going to need some eyebrows in here. And I actually did quite a lot of work on it, spent a bit of time, all done in watercolour. I did a bit of research on Victorian dresses for the ladies and things like that. And and then went back to art college in January, and it was let's have a look at what you've done over the Christmas holidays. And so I was very proudly put my work up, and everybody else, well, when I say everybody else put their work up, of course not everybody else did put their work up, because some people hadn't done anything, but had been partying too much or something. Anyway, I'd been a good boy, and I'd done my homework. And they kind of hummed and hawed at it, my lecturers, and they said, oh, this is so boring. I'm like, what? They said, this looks like it could have been done in Victorian times. So I said, well, that's kind of what I was trying to do, because it's Christmas Carol. They said, yeah, but, you want to try and make it a bit more relevant. And I think it was the first time I'd ever thought that, illustration could be something more than what had gone before, if you know what I mean. So I think at that stage I kind of thought, as an illustrator, you just had to try and make things look like how other people had done it in sort of previous centuries and things. So, if I was doing a Victorian book, I thought it should look like a Victorian book. And obviously not. So I'm doing this completely freehand. So anyway, I kind of thought, felt slightly upset, I suppose, in a way, because I've been criticised. Nobody likes being criticised, and so I think I've shied away from doing anything about Christmas Carol ever since. And I sort of wrote a note back to Gabe telling him this and saying, well, no, I don't think I really want to do that. And then I thought, maybe now is the time just to, this minute, just pick up a pen and just start drawing and see what happens. And this is what is happening. So I think he's going to need kind of a muffler. I'm trying to think. So his muffler will be there, but he'll have a big coat on, and his coat will be. I'm trying to think. So his coat. I'm thinking that So this this side will want to come over to there, and then we'll have the buttons down below here. So we'll have a button there like that. So he'll have kind of a muffler tucked in, and that will be sort of coming around that way. So we're going to want to have some feeling of this being knitted. And so I suppose this is kind of a first draft, just to kind of I'm not going to do a second, I don't think, but just to see what happens. I'm not sure. I think I probably have to do a bit of practice of how to draw a woolen scarf and get that kind of texture. But I think this might just work. I'm thinking that I'm going to add some grey watercolour to this as well, and we'll kind of do that. And it's going to be a bit kind of unshaven, in a kind of down at heel kind of way, because he's not. It's weird, isn't it? Because he's not really down at heel, because he's kind of runs this, I don't know, what is an accountancy business or something like that, and he's sort of saving up all his money. He's not spending it, so he can't be poor, can he? Because he's got lots of money. He's just not spending it. And let's get that really dark underneath there, and I think we need to have a bit of sort of shade coming in. I think it's a question about building this all up as I'm going along. We want sort of shade underneath there. So we're going to need lots of shade under here, so I need to kind of be a bit more careful as I come across there, not to go into the chin, because I want to keep that nice kind of sharp edge, and then cross hatch back down like this, and we'll make that darker all the way around there as well. So I'll have a bit more shade in there as well, and then quite a lot darker in there. So some bits I'm actually obliterating what the texture that I've drawn already, but I want it to be dark. And so yeah, and then I'll sort of do something in the ears there too. I think this should be sort of coming down there. And that's a bit weird, isn't it? So we want some sort of hatching around there as well. So I think we'll need a bit of shading going on down like that around that, and then also his teeth are going to be pretty shaded underneath there, and maybe not the cleanest teeth in the world. I suppose he's, well, I don't think you'd really want to go to a Victorian dentist, would you? That would be not the most lovely experience, I don't suppose. I'm assuming this is recording, yeah. Doing all sorts of, trying all sorts of different things with recording levels and things at the moment. So I'm hoping this is going to be okay. We want a little bit of shade. Eyeballs are not really white. They're kind of all sorts of different shades. And then we're going to give him this kind of hair like that. Now his coat, I think, is going to be coming right up there because he's hunched. He's got big hunched shoulders, and that will sort of come in down there like that, and in down there like that, and then he's got these big hunched shoulders to give him that kind of feel of misery. Yeah. Why am I laughing? I don't know. I suppose it's just the way he's turning out. So here we're going to want some kind of, it's going to be his sort of shirt or something showing through there, but not a lot. And then I think I just got to do a lot of kind of texture on this coat. So I've got to think, what am I going to talk about? I think, of course, the best ever version of Christmas Carol is the Muppet Christmas Carol with Michael Caine, but not a lot of people know that. And that's something that we generally have on in our house at least once a year, I think, probably. And it's a joyous kind of version, I think, really. Well, it's all supposed to be joyous at the end, isn't it? It's always meant to be, as he gets the message. And then there's, what's his name? There's the big turkey, or is it a goose? I think it's a goose, isn't it? That he on Christmas morning he wakes up and he thinks, "Oh, I haven't missed Christmas after all." Sorry, wrong voice. "I haven't missed Christmas after all. Oh, no. Maybe I can turn my life around." And he looks out of the window and sees some scrawny child, says, "Here, take some money, go and buy that gigantic goose in the butcher's." Which reminds me of another time when I was at art college, and it was bitterly cold. So this was just before Christmas again, so this must be the next year, or no, at least 2 years later, I suppose. And it was a beast from the east, the wind. And it was snow and absolutely terrible. And we had been spending some time early in that autumn with Christopher Corr, who was our drawing teacher. Christopher Corr's a great illustrator and sort of artist. And he got us out drawing a lot. He was very into drawing, and I was very timid about drawing at the time, and would much rather do illustration, which was a kind of thing that you sat down at your desk and did. At least that's how I saw it. That was work. Whereas drawing, I thought, was kind of, I don't know, drawing was for wimps. But of course, drawing is really at the heart of it all, which is really the lesson that Christopher Corr taught me. And so anyway, so we've been down to the cattle market in Cambridge, because I went to art college in Cambridge, and so we go down on market days, and most of those cattle markets have gone now. I don't know if the Cambridge cattle market's there. We had a big foot and mouth disease thing in the 90s. Was it the 90s? And so all the cattle markets had to close down, all the livestock markets had to close down for that. And they never really reopened because they discovered the internet in the meantime. And they found it was just more profitable and easier just to sell cattle online like that. So a lot of these cattle markets never opened. Anyway, so we would go down on market day and draw the animals and things and life going on in the ring, the auction ring and stuff like that. And so I kind of feel for what was going on down there. And of course, these animals come in for sale, and I realised what was happening was it was the ones that were ready for slaughter were being bought by butchers, and so they'd want that particular animal, and they'd choose that animal, and it would go off for slaughter and would arrive the next day at their shop, I presume. So anyway, and there was this one butcher who I spotted at the market, who had his shop at the end of the road where I lived. It was called Mr. Fabish. He was a Polish butcher, and I think I must have said hello to him down at the marketplace or whatever, and made some contact with him. I don't know. And so anyway, at the end of the term, we had this terrible weather, and it was so cold that when I walked down, trudged through the snow down to the end of the road, Mr. Fabish's shop was looking absolutely extraordinary, because he got all his prize carcasses out, hanging up in the shop, because it was colder in the shop than it was in the freezer. and it just looked so extraordinarily seasonal. And so I went in and said, can I come and draw? Yes, he said, come and draw. So I went in and drew, and it was so cold, and my fingers froze, and so I had to sort of every 10 minutes I had to go home and warm up and have a cup of tea, and Mr. Peppy's, have a sausage roll. Have a sausage, have a piece of steak. Giving me bits of meat and stuff, and so and it was an extraordinary time, because it was the time of the Solidarnosc, all the big thing that was going on in Poland at the time. You may remember the revolution, Lech Walesa, and all the shipyard workers were out on strike, and it was the beginning of the end of the I can't even remember what they call it, the USSR, really. And so so a lot of his clients were local sort of Polish people, who and they were all quite of an age. So I think most of them had been sort of come over during the war, and had maybe sort of fought alongside the RAF. There were a lot of our Polish pilots fighting in the Battle of Britain and things like that. So they were all of this kind of age, and they were all coming along and having these meetings round the back. Lots of hushed discussions going on with what's happening, have you heard, have you heard any news, what's going on, and so that was quite exciting, I suppose, being part of that thing that was going on. Well, feeling I was I think that should be the feeling that I was part of that thing going on. But it was so cold. and I would start a drawing and I just wouldn't be able to finish it because my fingers froze. But he'd sort of bought all the prize turkeys and the prize goose, and there was a whole string of geese hanging up. I remember, this is where we're coming back to the story, aren't we? Go and get the biggest goose in the window, young boy. Here's £0.50. And all his geese, they all had rosettes on them because they were all sort of prize winners, and in some show or other, I don't know. And so he was proudly showing off all this fantastic meat. And I remember round in the back office. See, now I think I'd be doing completely different things if I was there. And so in the back, that was so fascinating because he had I don't know if it was a son or a nephew or something like that working with him, who was taking all the feathers off the birds. And they had this feather plucking machine. And it was, I don't know if you ever remember the Philips Lady Shave. I think it was that, or the Epilator or something like that. They used to advertise around about that time on the television an awful lot, and it had kind of rubber wheels which sort of came together and pulled hairs out. Epilating. Oh, Philips Lady Shave. Oh, Philips Lady Shave. I remember the advert well. And in fact, my niece, who was sort of 4 or 5 at the time, she would come home from nursery school singing, "Oh, Philips Lady Shave," because it was on the TV all the time, that advert. So anyway, there was this machine which was basically these kind of rubber bands or something, which kind of just, they were going around at an incredible rate, and you kind of put the turkey, the bird, up to these rubber bands, and it would flick these feathers out all over the place. And so this guy was sort of in the back there, like it was snowing with all these feathers flying around. And now that's the first thing I would do. I'd forget the geese hanging up in the window. I'd be straight in there drawing him doing that, because it's just the funniest thing. But I think at the time I was so intimidated about drawing people, so I just wouldn't have done that. And I think one of the reasons I went into children's books was that I didn't have to draw people. I could draw cute little animals. But that's the way it goes. So yeah. And so while I'm doing this, it's sort of coming up to Christmas. And so today I put up some lights outside the front of our house, because it feels about the right time to do it, because they've been putting them up in town. They've been very late. In our town, they've always kind of done it really, really early, and the lights have always been up sort of around about September, because they've always been done by volunteers, and only on Sundays. And so that on Sundays you get everybody coming out, volunteering, and putting up the lights. But I think there's probably health and safety things that won't allow you to do that, and you just can't get the people to volunteer anymore either. So the council have taken it over, and it looked like we weren't going to get any lights this year, and then suddenly, pow, they're out there putting up the lights. And so I kind of felt, the road I live on is kind of one of the main roads into town, so I kind of feel it's time to put our lights on and kind of add to the general festivities. But I'm not ready to put the tree up yet. I just feel that needs to be a little bit nearer Christmas. I know the people across the road have got their tree up. I can see that when I close my curtains at night. And let's have a bit more of this going on. It's just building up and building up and building up. It's kind of the secret. And let's go up there. I'm going to do more here. So I think I'm going to do some cross hatching here. I'm going to do some and change the angle so that we get a darker shade underneath the lapel collar. And I've been humming a tune today, I've noticed. Boom, 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 and and then Mrs. Rayner and I went out for a walk this afternoon, and I was humming it, and she said, "What are you humming?" And I thought about it, and I realised it's the opening bars of a piece of music by, I couldn't tell you who. I will find out and put it in the comments below, and I'll see if there's a link to and I think you can find it on YouTube. Anyway, what happened was, it must have been about 10 years ago. I put the Christmas tree up. I decorate the Christmas tree. That's my kind of thing. The children always said, "Oh, Dad won't let us help," but of course they didn't. They couldn't really be bothered. So they say, "Oh, Dad, that's the thing Dad does." So anyway, I do the Christmas tree decorations, and so I don't know. About 10 years ago, while I was doing it, I think there was a program. I think I had maybe recorded it, and I watched it because we have it recorded, and I started watching this program as I started to put and decorate the Christmas tree, and it's just become a tradition now. Every year, it's become a tradition for me, not for anybody else, that I watch this program every year while I put the tree up, and I don't know. I think it's mostly about the music. I think, but the program is called Roger Scruton on Beauty. Now, Roger Scruton was a philosopher, usually referred to as right-wing philosopher or conservative philosopher. So, which I wasn't really aware of at the time. And he's this funny old guy. He's kind of a bit a little old-fashioned, shall we say. And but the program was called Roger Scruton on Beauty, so I couldn't see that had anything to do with politics or anything like that. I still can't, but I'm sure it does. With culture wars and whatever. I'm sure it probably does. Everything's politics now, isn't it? So his program is all about beauty and going through a kind of a history of beauty from ancient Greek times, and attitudes to beauty, and what is beauty, and stuff. He's having a real old go at modern art, and he talks to a couple of installation artists, and absolutely makes them look like complete idiots, and a bit like the Emperor's New Clothes. And when I don't know, to me anyway, when I hear these guys justifying what they're doing, I think, no, you don't convince me. And as he says, so much of it is just jokey, and it's a one-off joke of so much installation art, and I tend to agree with that. And it's quite fun. It's a bit like going to a theme park, bang bang, but there's nothing lasting really in sort of modern installation art, really, I don't think. And I'm sure a lot of it is not going to be in museums in sort of 500 years' time. Well, it'll all have rotted away anyway, because it's not sort of built to last anyway. However, so and he's sort of plays classical piano as well, and so he's sort of has this a couple, a soprano and a male soprano. A male soprano. He wouldn't be a castrati, but anyway, he sounds a bit like a castrati, but he's not. Well, not that I know of, anyway. And they sing a song, and so throughout the program they're rehearsing it, and he's playing the piano and they're rehearsing it and they're talking about it, and there's got a lacrimosa, something like that. I'll put the link down below, and it is just the most beautiful piece of music. And I think, as he said, I think I'm just going to put this on pause. And okay, so I had to go and find it. So the music is by Pergolesi, who was about 26 when he wrote it. It's called Stabat, and it's just very simple, incredibly simple, and it just goes straight to the heart, and it's very, very moving. And in the documentary, he has these two singers, and they talk about it and they rehearse, and then right at the end, the two singers sing it in a shopping mall, with a string quartet, and it is just absolutely beautiful, and it's just wonderful, the look on people's faces who are just everyday shoppers going around their business and sort of stopping to listen, and you can just see they're just very, very moved by the music. So so I was really going to watch this every year, really for the music, I think, but also it kind of reaffirms a little bit about art, I think, as well, and quite, what it's all about, because it's probably lost its way, hasn't it, recently? And it's it is all about the cheap trick and the quick buck, and beauty has kind of not got a place in art anymore, is it? It's all about ugliness and whatever. So I'm really droning on, aren't I? Filling in the space while I'm doing this drawing, really. So every year I put this video on, which has got it recorded on the Skybox or whatever. It's not, is it a Skybox? Humax box, whatever it is. And no, I need to do that way first, don't I? And then I sort of start untangling Christmas lights and baubles and start hanging them on the tree while Roger Scruton drones on. He died a couple of years ago, and I know some people were joyous at the thought. I think some left-wing people saw him as the devil, and I never read any of it. I don't know what, I was really surprised when he died to see some people saying good riddance, because I wasn't aware of any other politics. This is the only thing I really know about Roger Scruton, and that he sort of cared about beauty. But as I say, with culture wars, that can, I suppose, wind up some people. Nothing is inoffensive anymore, and just to say they like beautiful things, I suppose, offends some people nowadays. And so anyway, I shall be watching it again, and as I say, I'll put links to the video. I just found it on Vimeo, but I'll see if there's a YouTube version of it, because YouTube would rather have that link. And what am I doing here? I'm just filling in the spaces, really, and just kind of making it darker and darker. But I'm also trying to get sort of feeling of sort of shade, light and shade, although it is all kind of there should be snow around, shouldn't there, really? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have snow falling behind him, and then I might have to kind of paint some on afterwards if I can be bothered. I don't know. Let me do that. Let's see what happens. Snow is often a thing you have to think about before. Well, it depends. If you're sort of painting things, you have to think about the snow beforehand, probably, don't you? But when you're painting, you can just splodge white on top. Now I'm going to try something here with a kind of, I want it to look a bit sort of foggy in the background. Foggy. Would you get fog and snow? No, you wouldn't. No, that's something you wouldn't get, would you? But anyway, so I'm going to do this ziggy-zaggy kind of background like this. So what else can I tell you about Christmas and things like that? Other Christmas stories. Oh, well, there's the fire, of course, isn't there? Yeah. Click up here. You go see this drawing my life. Oh, that's the wrong bit, not quite right, is it? I did this drawing my life video years ago. I only got to about the age of 5. And so this is, my dad was in the army, and we lived out in Germany then when I was 5ish or something like that. And 4 actually, more like 4, I think. And so we lived on an army patch. It was actually it was Rembrandtstrasse, yeah, so there's army patches in Germany often had very German names, like we later lived in Lincoln Drive. Sounds very German. But this was Rembrandtstrasse. And it was only years. I didn't know. Only very, very recently, actually, it suddenly dawned to me. Oh, Rembrandtstrasse, Rembrandt Street. I never thought. Yeah. So anyway, Rembrandtstrasse, and we had a semi-detached house with the Den Boltons living next door, who had at least 3 daughters, maybe 4, I can't remember. And there was Bridget, who was my age, and she and I were going to get married, of course. We were kind of best friends, and there was a chain link fence down the garden separating us at the back. You may call it a yard, and I think we'd sort of bent the fence down and we'd just kind of crawl over it into each other's gardens like that. And what happened? It was around about Christmas time, and I don't know what happened. I kind of vaguely remember I was listening to something this week that said that you only really start creating memories, real memories, at the age of 7, which I'm not sure about. But then I started thinking about it, and I think I've always had incredible memories of childhood, but suddenly it was like, it's like I can't think about it. It's all gone. And the memories that really, really come to mind when I think about it are all really quite associated with photographs. And so that makes me suspicious as to whether they are real memories or whether they're memories that are being created while looking at old photographs and everybody telling stories around the photographs, or whether the photographs just triggers off memories. Maybe that's it. And so we had a fire just coming up to Christmas, and the fire was in the dining room, I think, where the Christmas tree was, with all the gifts underneath it. And it was sometime in the afternoon, and I've always had very clear kind of memories about this, and now I'm really questioning them. And I don't think I really remember anything about it at all, except for things that people have said. And of course, therein lies the problem. So all my life, at Christmas time, the stories come out, and my brother has always been joyous. Well, that's the second time I've used that word. Oh, that's probably a better word. He's always been quick to tell the story of when Sue burnt the house down, and then I would cringe and feel terribly embarrassed, hide under the table, and at times I would be really, really quite upset about it, actually, because I've been hearing this story ever since I was 4 about how awful I was, and then the stories would always continue on about how terrible I was at Christmas, and running around the church screaming on Christmas Day, and what a terrible person I was. So you put up with these things in a family, don't you? And then, I don't know, about 10 years ago or something, and then Christmas Eve, we were all sat round, had a few drinks, and out comes this story again. And suddenly I heard it completely differently. And I thought, wait a minute. And I started counting and working it out. I thought, wait a minute, I was only 4. And I'm getting blamed for burning the house down. And I thought, I wonder whether I actually did so. My mother was there. Whenever these stories came out, my mother would always go very, very quiet. So I said, so what actually happened? Where were you? How come I was allowed to set fire to the house? Where were you? I was only 4 years old. And it all came out that, in fact, I was next door with Bridget playing. And, well, the army is kind of, there's a heavy drink culture in the army. And Christmas time, there's lots of drinking going on. So my parents were in bed in the afternoon, sleeping off a heavy lunch, and I was next door with Bridget Den Bolton then. And I said, you mean I had nothing to do with the fire? No, of course you didn't. And I said, well, why haven't you said anything in all these years? Oh, I don't know. Probably because she felt really, really guilty. So suddenly I thought, I didn't set fire to this house, and my brother looked absolutely crestfallen because he couldn't have a go at me. He hadn't got that ammunition anymore. And then, what about midnight mass? Screaming, running around the church. So I looked at my mother again. I said, is this true? Well, she said, well, then, yeah, I suppose. I said, so how old was I? Well, you must have been about a year old, maybe two years old, something. So I said, you mean that you took a toddler to midnight mass and expected them to be nice and quiet? That's nothing to do with me. It's not my fault. And I've been putting up with the blame for this all my life. And so that was the end of that. Never got that story thrown at me again. And it was all, I realised, oh my goodness, this is all a great big guilt trip. And I could see my brother just desperately waiting for Christmas each year when he could do his thing and get me into that uncomfortable place. And it's a power trip thing, isn't it? Oh, so, and how easy it is to just go along with stories. Oh, this is changing dramatically here, isn't it? The angle of the things that I'm doing. And how easy it is to just go along with these stories, and suddenly stories become reality. They become the truth. And the more you say something, the more it becomes reality. President Trump knew that, didn't he? So where does that leave you as an artist, as you're sitting here watching this thinking, what the heck is he doing? I think if I was probably doing this as an illustration, I think I'd be really planning this and taking more time. But as I'm talking, I'm thinking, how long is this video going to go on for? Then it's all sort of going off in its own direction. I think I need some bigger bits of snow down here. So yeah, it's that you'll have heard that saying, "Fake it till you make it." That's exactly what it is. And I don't like that phrase, but it's a phrase that gets used a lot. But if you want to be an artist, it's about the stories that you tell yourself. And if you're telling yourself all the time, I'm no good at this, then that becomes the reality of it. And if you want to, where's that? That's down there. If you want to improve and really get it together, you got to tell yourself a different story. And if you're not ready to tell yourself, I'm a genius, I'm brilliant, because maybe a little part of you inside is not going to believe that, in which case it's not going to work. You can tell yourself a different story from, I'm useless, I'm no good, I'm not getting anywhere. You can tell yourself a story that you're learning and you're on your way. And you're trying to achieve something. So you tell yourself that and each day, if you do something good, you have to kind of rewrite the script and say, yeah, remember that thing I did? That was really good, but then don't rest on your laurels. You have to keep the story going. You have to keep saying, that was really good, and now I'm I'm moving on from there, because a story has a beginning, a middle and an end, but you don't want it to end yet. You want it to sort of keep going and building and building and building the story of your life. And so you've got to keep sort of adding to the story and saying this and next, this is what happened next, and this is what's going to happen next, and this is a really good bit, and that's a good bit, and that's the story of your life. It goes back to that thing where I was doing the drawing my life thing. I found that really weird when I was drawing my life, and it was quite fun to do to start off with. And I thought, I suppose you start questioning the reality, the truth of it all. I think maybe that was actually around about the time that I did start questioning the truth of the stories that I was told about how I burnt the house down. And it's like every time that I sort of tried to assert myself, I think, when I think about it as a child and sort of growing up, it was, oh, yeah, but you set fire to the house. And it was like, get back in your box. And I never did. Oh, dear. So the thing is to rewrite that story, which is kind of what I did when I realised and said, I never wrote that. I never did. I never did set fire to the house. So I've got that story completely rewritten in my head. Although I'm going on and on and on about it now, so it sounds like I'm sort of haven't quite got over it. But I think I'm just using it as an example. There's a lot of ink on here, isn't there? I'm probably going to wear this pen out. Oh, I'm going to wear my hand out. And so, and it's sort of continuing to the end, and I think, resilience. So this is another thing now. I've started this, so I'm just going to keep drawing till I finish, and just keep going, because it's just too easy to say, nah, I'm getting bored of this now, and end up with yet another half-finished piece of work. So all these things you need as an artist, and I think people think, artists, they they don't live in any kind of reality, but in fact, to make it as an artist, you need to really have all those kind of words: resilience and self-belief and ideas, and just sort of keep coming up with new ideas and stuff like that. So I'm trying to think and draw at the same time. I'm going to have a bit more sort of cross-hatchingness there, like that. This is so heavily inked, isn't it? And then half a mind to. I said that I'd do some grey tone over the top of it, but now I'm thinking maybe not. Just to keep working the darks. Getting the darks darker. It's going to be quite dark around there, I think. And it's going to be darker on this side. It's getting darker. Oh, that's a song that I can sing on here. That's what's it? I could just slip that music in now, actually, because it's me singing. I'll just edit it in. And resume. I've found it, so I can put this music in here because I'm singing it, and bring this down.
So here we are, talking in circles again, wasting oxygen. Are you surprised? So here we are, using up air, getting nowhere. Well, what a surprise. It's getting colder, and the night is nearly through. We're another day older. So here we are, talking things over again, confusing now and then. Are you surprised? So here we are, trading promises, and your face says you're not surprised. It's getting colder, and the night is nearly through. We're another day older, and a little bit wiser too. We had our chances, but we stood and let them pass. Those few last dances, when we knew it couldn't last. It's getting colder.
Ooh, that's a bit of a bump now.
It's getting colder, and the night is nearly through. We're another day older, and a little bit wiser too. We had our chances, but we stood and let them pass. Those few last dances, when we knew it couldn't last. It's getting colder. It's getting colder.
Well, I bet you weren't expecting that, were you? What's that all about? I suppose that's kind of, it makes me think of this time of year. It's getting colder. It certainly is outside here, it's getting colder. And that was a band I was in the 80s called Flamazine. And if you click up here, I'll put a link to the YouTube channel where there are other songs. They haven't got them all on there. I haven't put them up yet. I'll keep meaning to sort of put all the songs we wrote up there. And I don't know what's happened to them. We split up acrimoniously, as bands often do. That's the way it goes, isn't it? So I don't know. There was Laurie the guitarist and John the drummer. I have no idea what happened to them. Laurie used to be a pharmaceutical salesman. So I imagine he may have gone back to that. And John was, well, he was a drummer, so I imagine he carried on drumming. And then there was Marius. So Marius and I used to write a lot together. We were kind of the main writing team. And Marius, I do know what's happened to, because he's done very well for himself. And I last saw him on La La Land. If you watch La La Land, you'll see there's a scene where she goes for she goes up for a job as an actress, and she goes into a room and there's a woman and a man, and she does her pieces for them, and they say thank you, next. And the man in the thing is Marius, and he's done very well for himself as a musical director. He's played with everyone, U2, Madonna, the whole lot. But we've never spoken since. As I say, it was an acrimonious band breakup. I think band breakups are, I don't know, as bad as divorce. As bad as a divorce without any children involved, I suppose. Having children involved would be different, but it was very emotional. And so probably all my fault. I was getting a little paranoid at the time, I think. Don't know quite where to go with this. So I kind of feel maybe needs a bit more sort of darkness in underneath here. I've drawn this on watercolour paper because I was assuming I was going to do some. I'm going to do that. So I'm going to find some paints and a brush. So I'm going to wash in the background. So this is my neutral tint. There we go. I think it was almost obligatory for British art students to be in a band at some point, but I think I always wanted to be in a band before I ever thought about being an art student. I think the art student was a bit later idea, although I was in that band after I was an art student. But in this country, so many bands came out of art colleges. I think the Beatles, had some kind of art college link. And if I can just do around like that. Now the problem with this is that once I start putting this on here, then it would, for a book or anything like that, for publication, print publication, it would have to be done half tone. Whereas before you could just do it straight black and white. Oh, I just gone over a snow. So it's getting colder. That's what I was talking about, wasn't it? Some Christmassy things. So so that's a bit of a Christmas carol thing about it getting colder. And so there we go. I always loved Christmas time as a teenager. It was just kind of always just felt so cozy, I think. And when I was a teenager, well, my brother was that bit older than me, so and he and my sister, they went and did the Christmas post when I was then, I don't know what, about 10 or something like that. So it was something I always kind of wanted to do. It was just something you felt, yeah, you did as you grew up. So they were taking on fewer people, I think. But anyway, they still took on quite a lot of people for the Christmas post. So when I was, 16, 17, 18, they must have done it about 3 years, I should think. And so you'd apply and you got paid so well. Or so it seemed at the time, anyway. And there was always sort of opportunities for overtime and things like that. And I loved it. And so you'd go in the morning, at 6 o'clock in the morning or something, and it was freezing cold. And you go to your desk, and there'll be all these pigeonholes and a great big piles of post dumped on your desk, or station, or whatever you call it. And then you'd take the rubber bands off these piles of post and spread them out and start going through them one by one. And so the pigeonholes were then all numbered and ordered according to the walk you were on. And so you started slotting them in streets and numbers, and there might be a factory which had a lot of posts, so they would have their own pigeonhole. And so then you'd get them all into the pigeonholes, and then you'd get them out, each little pile from each pigeonhole, reorder them according to the number of the house ordering on that street, and then sort of get them all into rubber band piles again. The post office must have gone through so many rubber bands. And And then you get on your bike and head off out. And I think the first year I didn't have a bike because I was actually within walking distance of where I delivered the post. And that was an eye-opener as well, because it was in an interesting part of town which I would not normally go to. And so I had 3 large tower blocks, and there were quite a lot of sort of old people living in them. And I remember, oh God, there's this one particular letterbox on the tower block, and I used to hate it because if you put your hand into it had lift up flap and a flap on the other side, and as you put the letter in, it's like this sort of green atmosphere would come pouring out. And it was sort of I used to think it was like sort of cabbage smoke, and it all stank of cabbage, this place. So that was not my favourite place. And then you would occasionally meet people on the stairs because the lifts never worked, of course. So I was climbing up the stairs with this heavy bag of post, and having been told, whatever you do, don't leave your bag of post at the bottom of the stairs, and so just take a few bits up with you because your bag of post will not be there when you come back. And then there were sort of, other interesting places. And every now and then you'd have a signed parcel, and so you'd have to knock on the doors, and no one knew who was going to come out. And sometimes there would be, I don't know, scary people. Yeah, what do you want? But some post, you have to sign it. Why do I have to sign it? I don't know, you just say, I'm not signing nothing. And then you've got other people. Oh, hello, would you like a cup of tea, young man? You look so cold. And you get all sorts of different people. And then another time, then I was off on the bike, and you'd have to sort of cycle out to the edge of town and deliver things, and there were always the old folk wanting to stop and chat because they hadn't spoken to anybody for a week or whatever. And again, it sort of took me to places that I would never have gone otherwise, certainly at that age. Places I didn't know existed, I think. And I suppose I had quite a privileged upbringing then, compared. And then the great thing would be on Christmas Eve. So we'd all go off early, do our round. There'd just be one round on Christmas Eve, and then we'd all become sort of friends. Well, I mean, a lot of us went to school with each other anyway, and so we knew each other anyway. And so we'd then get paid, because we used to get paid cash in those days. And we'd all get paid, we'd get our pay packet, and we'd all go, woohoo, let's go to the pub. And that was just the beginning of it, really. And then, so we go to the pub, and my memories of Christmas Eves, we'd be going to the pub and getting absolutely paralytic. And that would be at lunchtime. And then going off Christmas shopping. Oh, I got some money, I'm going to buy some Christmas presents. And oh yeah, I'll have one of those. Oh yeah, I'll buy that for so. And sort of buying. I really want to have this kind of looking a little bit red at the end. I don't know. Well, I'm not going to make it looking red, but I'll make it look a bit. I'm not really thinking about this, am I? Yeah, so off to Christmas shopping, and then I think, oh, I need some wrapping paper, all that kind of thing. And then that wouldn't be the end of it, because then, of course, it's Christmas Eve. In the evening, that's when everybody goes out by that stage. So just about enough time to go home and sober up a little bit before heading off into town again to and I always used to sort of think, oh, we had such a good time at lunchtime, I'll go back. And we'd sort of, lunchtime pubs are not the same in the evening. And so I remember one particular time going back thinking, oh yeah, I'll go back and see if everybody's still in the pub. And it was like a totally different place. And Hell's Angels and rockers. I'm thinking, I don't think I should be here. As well, it didn't quite all go silent because it had all the Christmas music blaring on the jukebox. But it might as well have done as everybody sort of turned round and stared at us. At me, rather. Because I'm sort of on my own, kind of looking for a fun night out. And in the end thinking, I think I will go down to where we normally all meet up and then sort of join in the celebrations. So I suppose I would wake up on Christmas Day and not really remember anything about the night before much, because I certainly can't remember now. But Christmas was always good fun. And I suppose I sort of wake up with my mum doing all the Christmas stuff, whatever cooking and things going on, Christmas going on around me, and I'd be going, oh, my head. And I wonder whether I had anything left from my pay packet. Probably not. Oh, youth. I think, what are we going to do here? I think I'm going to use this to start toning down the hat around about there, I think, and bits around there, sort of toning down. Oh, I think I'm probably going to call that it. I've been at it for a while. Thanks for watching. Make sure you are subscribed to the Shoe Renner Drawing channel and keep coming back for lots more Christmas cheer. In the meantime, keep drawing, practice, and I'll see you next time. You take care now. Bye-bye.